This week, I am planning on finishing up the section on region with Asia, and then from there go into human environment interaction. Wednesday, I plan on you guys having a quiz, not a test. So the quiz, you guys will be covering the section on region, which includes, by the way, all the stuff that we haven't, or that we did last week, in addition to what we do tomorrow. So that's more or less this week, what we're going to be doing. Now, yes, sorry.
Target's only at on Thursday, but we don't look at this time.
Well, considering Thursday is going to be 20-minute classes, not a whole lot.
Okay, good.
My plan is to kind of start looking at maybe some stuff with Vietnam and kind of some of the more modern stuff, but we'll kind of see where it goes. I'm not really wanting to just sit around and do that because again, I only have 20 minutes, so what I might just have you guys do is just read an article. Either way, you should be able to make it. Okay. So after that, next week, as you guys know, we have 2 weeks until we get to the week before finals. Now, why I'm thinking about it that way, we have 3 weeks and then we have finals here. The week before finals, I always give to you guys as a study week. Essentially, you can work on whatever you want. Now, considering that you're taking my final dead last, I actually recommend you use that time to study for other things. Basically, during that whole time, I'm going to be available to anybody who wants to ask questions, but otherwise, I'm not going to be looking at what you're doing. If you're, playing Candy Crush or whatever else, I'm not going to know. It's, I'm not your mother. I'm not here to watch after you make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's on you, which means use your time effectively. That Monday, I'll be giving you guys the study guide for the final. Basically, the plan is I'm going to be taking 100 questions from your previous tests. Okay, that's going to be the test, right? That's the thing right there. So I'm going to give you guys your previous tests again, so you guys can have all the questions. And basically, each day we'll probably spend a little bit of time going over one test, so you guys have all of the correct answers, and then that way you can just easily know what you need to study for. So that's that week. So that leaves us 2 weeks between now, well, the end of this week, and then. So my plan is to pretty much look at Pacifica somewhere in there, as well as finish up Asia. So basically, we're probably going to have 1 more week of Asia and then 1 week of Pacifica, which will be like Australia, Indonesia, all those kind of places. So it's going to be really, really fast. We will not have we will not have a test on it. We just can't put it in, but we will fit a quiz in. So, right? Don't joke. So yeah. It does, however, strike me that I forgot to give you guys a map for Asia.
Darn.
I utterly forgot to check this out. So that means that there's going to be no map on Asia because we're not going to have time for that mess. So instead, what's going to happen is going to be 30 multiple choice questions plus the essay. So there's going to be more questions on material. It'll work. It's fine. It actually works out better for me too because it gives me stuff I can throw around for your final. So just because I don't put maps on the final. So you just oops. I just forgot about everything else that was going on, and plus your all's projects just slipped mine. So I know you guys are very upset about that. But hey, Lucy, hold on. Well, I'll show you where Vietnam is. That's no big deal. I will show you. I'll have a map and everything. I will point so hard will the point be. Yes, ma'am.
Why did they go from 2 words to 1?
What?
I saw in the book that Viet and then Nam was 2 words.
Considering it's from, I believe it's from their language, you'd have to ask someone who speaks Vietnamese.
I.e. me.
I don't know enough to answer that question.
I worked with Vietnamese people, they were learning English when they came to America, and they're older. And they're trying to teach it to me, and when I couldn't say it, they would point at me and laugh. I was working with this man, and his wife was so angry that I was there, and she goes, get up, we're going home. And they just left me. Bye.
That's unfortunate. So basically that's it, guys. That's kind of everything from now till then. So, yeah, it's gonna be fast. That's about it, because I'm pretty sure that while those are full weeks, they're kind of also not. We got concert and everything else is kind of interrupted. So we'll make it work out. Right. So let's have a look at this. Where did we stop? I don't remember.
Modern culture.
What?
The next one after this.
This one?
Yeah, that's the last thing we are.
So we talked about.
I forgot I wasn't here.
Oh, you can catch up on using the video. So here's the next slide. Just like I'm recording today, we got stuff. Why are you not showing? There we go. There we go. Maybe? Yes. Hot damn. Okay. So anyways, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. Sikhism. Yeah, that's So first of all, you guys know that India is a cultural heart for this area. A lot of the religions that are predominant throughout South and East Asia originated from India. Basically, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism. Now, I'm going to go over basic philosophy in some of these faiths incredibly quickly. Suffice it to say, there's a lot more to it. But starting with Hinduism. So basically, the idea behind Hinduism is that life is terrible. Life is suffering. And essentially the goal is to get to a point where you will not be living anymore. Instead reaching a sort of paradise sort of existence. Now, this is different than Buddhism. I'll get to why here in a second. But essentially, the thing that really differentiates between Buddhism and Hinduism and a lot of the other terms is how do you get there? How do you get to this thing? And basically, all of them believe in the cycle of reincarnation, which you guys know what that means, I presume. You die, you're reborn. You die, you're reborn, etc., etc. Now, in the case of Hinduism, traditionally, society was broken up amongst various castes. I believe there were 5 of them. It's called the jati. And your caste determined what your dharma was. Dharma is basically what you're supposed to do in society, how you're supposed to act, what you're supposed to give, basically all the aspects that you are part of. Basically your entire identity is your jati. That also includes who you could marry, Lexus and Alyssa. Yeah.
Both parties?
Yeah. Lexus.
She's a Jew.
Let's say.
Did they give me the wrong number?
Yeah, well, I don't know this one.
Oh, fabulous.
She's in another class of mine. It's the wrong time. Okay, it was fantastic. Moving on. So yeah, basically you're doing your dharma. Okay. And if you do a good job doing your dharma, you accrue sort of positive credit, if you will, positive energy or whatever you want to call it too. That's called karma. And if you get enough karma, you get reincarnated at the next higher jati. And so you keep working your way up. The idea is that the lower jatis are kind of poor and don't really have a lot of influence in society, so they really can't do a whole lot of good. And the higher you go, the more good you should be able to do. The point where you get to the highest level, and then you can actually be basically phased out of this world. Very, very brief. It's also a polytheistic faith. Now, Buddhism is like that, but different in that in Buddhism they believe that all the suffering in this world is caused by desire. Desire is basically your want for other stuff. And basically you can get out of this by following the Eightfold Path, which basically explains that if you can do all these different types of things and experience oneness with the universe, nirvana, you can get out of the cycle of rebirth. Yeah.
Can you explain Nirvana?
Yeah, nirvana is basically, it means to snuff out. That's what the term means, to snuff out like a candle, to cease to exist. The idea is life is pain, and then this is how you get out of it. Now, the way I've heard it explained is it's not like literal, like you cease to exist. It's more like you become one with everything else.
Like someone
Bible, like on Twitter, I saw this thing, and it said that like it showed a picture of this man, he like reached nirvana, you know, just like I don't know how to explain it. He was just like sitting there and it described like what was going on.
Yeah, I couldn't explain what that would be from that description, but I will say that in the Buddhist faith, there is believed to be those, I forget the term for them, but they're basically like saints, people who have reached enlightenment, but they come back anyways and suffer anyways so that they can help others
Yeah, it was
to
like
reach.
he was dead, but he was like in nirvana, like he hadn't died, but he was like stuck.
Is it that monk, a picture of that monk who was like sitting in the thing who's actually a mummy?
Was a mummy?
Yeah, there was one that was a mummy, and they claimed that he was just in a very, very deep state of meditation. It's like, he has no life signs. He's kind of dead. Yeah.
Okay, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I read that, and it's not true, unfortunately. But, anyhow, Sikhism is a derivative of Hinduism. One of the things that really sets them apart is they wear turbans. Men do. It's a head wrapping. True, that's actually what they do that so they can wrap it up.
Is that Hinduism?
It's Sikhism. Yeah, there's a lot more to Sikhism than that. I'm not that terribly familiar with it. I did actually graduate college with a Sikh, which was kind of interesting because the turban is actually part of their religious like mandates. So it's not like they would do it just because. It's literally religious requirements. And so he was like trying to fit on his graduation cap, and he like, it's not fitting over the turban. You know, what am I supposed to do? And so basically he ended up pinning the tassel to his turban. So it was pretty cool. It's actually funny too, I saw on Facebook, I forget when exactly, someone was complaining because there was a guy in a turban who, was on his picture, and it was like a camouflage turban. He was in the military, in the army. And basically it said, Muslim demands the uniform be changed, and all these people angry about, this guy's really trying to change the uniform of the U.S. Army and those darn dirty Muslims and all that sort of stuff. If you actually read the article, he was a Sikh doctor who the U.S. Army went and asked, like, hey, would you be interested in joining the Army? He's like, well, I'm a Sikh, I can't take my turban off, is that cool? That being the uniform? And I said, yeah, sure, that's the uniform. And then when he actually went and graduated basic training, like, hey, you can't have that anymore. And he's like, but you said, and so basically he went and requested that he get special permission. He was granted. That was all of the story. So, that particular Facebook message was earlier on so many levels. But, I hear people all the time saying, the person wearing a turban must be a Muslim. No, let's see. Different places in the world. But, one thing that's interesting, like Pakistan. So Pakistan broke through with India because they were Muslim and the Hindus, they had that whole fight and everything. But poetry is one of the kind of principal forms of artistic expression from this area of the world. Poets are still renowned. Like, for instance, if you told your parents, I want to go to college and I want to study poetry and be a poet, most likely it look like you have 3 heads, And what are you doing for a living? If you did that in Pakistan, they're cool, yeah, that'd be awesome. To some extent, it's, you have to be good. Professional poets are like rock stars there. People go and pay a lot of money to go hear their poetry. Which it seems a little weird because we really don't think of poetry as being like something you enjoy, I feel. Like, we're not going to talk too much about it, but you probably have that experience in college or in high school, and you're like, well, we're going to study poetry, and not many people are like, yay! Why is that, do you think?
Because a lot of poetry is very confusing and deep, and it's hard to understand.
Okay. Let me ask you guys a question. You guys like music?
It's poetry.
It is poetry, you're right. It's just set to instruments, which, by the way, poetry traditionally was a lot of times. Not always, but a lot of times it was. For instance, the Iliad is thought to have been set to music. Epic poems, things like that. So,
Sometimes when people are saying poetry, they have those little drums following.
Yeah, for rhythm, things like that. But the fact of the matter is, it's all a matter of taste as much as anything. Then, anytime you're forced to study something in school, you're going to dislike it. That's just the very nature of the beast, unfortunately. But, que sera, sera. There is one thing one poem in particular, though, it's interesting because if you study the history of it, It was based on the Iliad, and it was written initially in India, but got adapted in Persia. And it takes place throughout the Silk Road area, but it's a poem called 1001 Arabian Nights. Are you guys familiar with that? Kind of half the cup. I'm sure you're familiar with some of the stories in it, like Aladdin and the Magic Lamp.
Oh, Aladdin.
Yep. Aladdin. And who's Chinese, by the way, in the original story. Yep. Yep, Chinese Muslim. Yep. Hyderabad is all a messed up place in Disney. But, it's not like Disney would just, take a source story and just kind of make stuff up. They would never do that.
Like Pokemon.
Hercules! Yeah. Anyway. But, do you guys know the story behind 1001 Arabian Nights?
No.
It's actually pretty neat. So basically the story goes like this. There was a king, Shahnamar, who was totally head over heels in love with his wife. Completely, just infatuated with her, and was very happy. Except that she didn't actually love him. She was in fact in love with his brother, who was not the king. So betrayed her husband and tried to have him killed so she could be with his brother. So, however, the king found out about this. The brother got away, but she was killed in the process of this, sort of like little coup d'etat. So, with his wife dead and his heart broken, he decides that women cannot be trusted and refuses to marry again. However, in the Middle East, this isn't really possible. You have to have a queen. You have to be part of a unit. It's actually, it goes into all the whole culture, which we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on. But suffice it to say, you're seen as an absolute abject weirdo if you don't get married. Like, people were put in mental institutions who didn't want to be married. That's how crazy it was seen. So, he couldn't do that. So he said, well, fine, I'll marry, but I'm going to kill I'm going to kill my wife every morning. And so basically it was sort of like dug his heels in. Well, it turns out you're getting married and killed his wife. And this went on for about 3 years or so.
Every day you get like be married.
Yep. Allegedly. There's actually different. There's different ways of telling this story. Admittedly, that's the more traditional one. The more kind of modern one I've heard is that no one took up the marriage, and so he remains kind of steadfastly unmarried. He said basically, I'll marry whoever, who's going to go through this. So, next part. His advisor, the Grand Vizier, had a very beautiful daughter named Scheherazade. And she was actually in love with Shahnamar. And so she was telling her dad, I want to marry him. I want to go through with this. Because she believed that she could actually save him. Like he was actually a good man, but, he was just really hurt. And so her dad's like, no, absolutely not. This is not okay. Well, eventually she convinces him, and so Scheherazade and Shahnamar are married. And that night, as they're getting ready for bed, she goes, would you like to hear a bedtime story? And so he's just kind of like, whatever, fine. And it turns out she's a great storyteller. And starts weaving this story. It's got him on the edge of his seat. It lasts all night. We're talking a huge epic, right? Well, as the sun's rising and she's telling her tale, she leaves it on a cliffhanger. It says, I can't keep this up. I'm sorry, my lord. I'm very tired. We've been up all night. And so he says, fine, you get to live. You're going to tell me the rest of the story tonight. So next night, she continues on that story, but she actually is doing a second story that's weaved into the first one, so you can't tell where one begins, the other ends. And again, that night leaves on a cliffhanger. This continues for 1,001 nights, which, if you do the math, is slightly over 3 years. By that point, they've had several kids together, and as she ends her tale, he realizes that he totally trusts her, he totally loves her, and he made a mistake, and they live happily ever after. So yeah, that's the story about the night. And each of those nights is a different story.
Is it interlaced in like the
Yep. Yep. That usually it's like a character is in the spot of another one as the story's beginning, so they're all tied together. And of course, you've heard of some of them, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, Magic Lamp, things like that. Some of them I find most people aren't really that familiar with. And the thing of it is that there's different kinds of, there's romance stories in it, there's humorous stories, there's all kinds of different stuff in it. One of my favorite stories is actually the story of the Hunchback. And most folks don't know that one. So I'll tell you the story of the Hunchback. Here's what it goes. So basically, you had a couple who were living in Istanbul, and they prescribed the idea of salat, which was the Muslim duty for charity. And so basically, once a week, they would find some beggar and invite them into dinner. And basically, the only requirement for enjoying their hospitality, a meal and a bed and the whole shebang, was they just had to have pleasant conversation. So we got to talk, and that's really the only requirement. And so one day, as the wife is about the Grand Bazaar, she sees a hunchback. And the thing of it is, someone who is physically handicapped like that, it's like, my goodness, he must be having a rough time. So she invites him over to dinner, and he accepts, and they have an amazing time. It's this nice spread of food, and this guy is absolutely hilarious. Like, he's telling jokes, he's having a good old time, and despite his small size, he's eating a lot of food. The company's so great, they don't mind, charity and all that stuff, so all's well. Well, as he is eating the very last morsel in the dish, he ends up choking on a fish bone and dies. And so the couple look at this guy, and they're like, oh my God, he's dying, we got to get him to a doctor. And as they start kind of rearranging, the husband gets a good look and says, oh my God, this is the court jester, it's the Sultan's best friend. We just killed the Sultan. He is going to punish us. This is terrible. And so they end up taking him to a doctor and basically dumping him on the stairs, knock on the door, and run. Well, the doctor happens to be a Jew. He lives in the Jewish quarter of the city, and as you guys probably are aware, Jews not necessarily the most looked on well in terms of the Middle East, and they're kind of looked down upon. So this doctor ends up opening the door. It's dark, and he's looking around. He's got really bad eyesight. He starts, who's there, things like that. He takes a step forward, ends up tripping over the body. They both go tumbling down the stairs. And so he's like, oh my goodness, are you all right? And starts checking his vital signs. Oh my gosh, he's dead. Looks at it, goes, oh my God, this is the jester of the Sultan. I'm going to be punished. And so he calls for a servant, help me with this. And so they get the body up, and they're not willing to do so. They end up putting him up on the roof and see a chimney. So thinking nothing else better, they dump him down the chimney. So inside this building is a monk from a faraway place in the eastern part of Asia who is meditating. And as he's sitting there, this body drops through the fireplace, and he's like, it's a robber! So he lashes out and punches him square in the neck, drops him to the ground. He's like, oh my gosh, I've killed him. I didn't realize how strong I was. So he looks down at him. Oh my gosh, this is the court jester. I'm going to be punished. This cannot happen. I'm a foreigner. This is going to be terrible. So he ends up, without nothing anything else to do, hucks him out a window. So at the bottom of the window is a baker, and this guy just leaps on him, and he starts fighting him off, help, calling for the guards. So the guards show up. Say, what's the matter? This man attacked me. And look at him. This is the court jester. This man is dead. You killed him. You are going to be punished. So they grab him, they haul him off to jail. Now, the Sultan was the Sultan Harun al-Rashid. And he was known for his wisdom, but he also was known for having a temper. And basically, he wasn't known for his mercy. Let me put it that way. So the court is, and this news spreads like wildfire through Istanbul. Everybody is going to be at this court to see the punishment of this man who killed this great, friend of the Sultan. So, the judges are there, and they're going to throw the book in. They're listening to this guy, and he's pleading for mercy, and everyone knows he's going to get it. And, as the judges are right about to read out the sentence, the monk stands up and says, no, I can't let this go. I can't let him be punished. I was the one who killed him. He had come through my fireplace, and I thought he was attacking. I thought he was a robber, and so I hit him, and I killed him. It was my fault. So the judges are like, well, now that you've admitted to it, we're going to, and then the Jewish doctor stands up, no, it was my fault. He came to me for help, and I tripped over him and killed him. It was an accident, but I was afraid because I'm a Jew, and I should be punished. And so the judges are like, okay, you're guilty of it, so you're going, and then the couple says, no, it's our fault. He was eating, there was a chicken, and they explain this whole thing, and then they just start hearing the Sultan laugh. And everyone goes dead quiet. They're like, This sounds eerie as all get out because, the Sultan is just, he's going to let them all have it, right? And he's laughing. He says, don't you see? You see what you're all doing? They're ridiculous. The jester has died, true, but in his death, he has told his final and his greatest joke. So everybody gets pardoned. The end.
What?
His joke was that, you have all these people, like, this absurd situation where this body is getting passed around and everything. It's, it's a silly, it's kind of a macabre story, but, it's,
Worst story I've ever heard. Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to have a particularly perverse sense of humor to get that one. But anyway, let's talk China. So first of all, do you guys know what a dynasty is? Yeah, ruling family. So it's got several of those. One of the things that's unique about China historically is that China has been conquered many times. Yet, whereas most empires, when they're conquered, that's the end of the empire. China actually, kind of makes their conquerors Chinese. Yeah. Great example of this is the Mongols. The Mongols are barbarians. These barbarian dudes who run around on horses in the middle of Central Asia, they conquered China, and they're like, right, we're here to conquer. It's like, thank goodness you're here. Okay, come on in. Here's your throne. We've taken the order to sign all of the documents into your name, so if you just sign here, thanks very much. And here's your tax money for the season. Oh, is there anything else you need? No, I guess, yeah, I'm the king now. Oh, yes, you are. You're the emperor. We're thinking this is your dynasty coat of arms. What do you think? Is that fantastic or what? Yeah, that's pretty great. Fantastic. Well, thank you, my lord. And off they go and they keep ruling. And so it's like, even though there's a new ruler, they just kind of keep doing their own thing. And the rest of the world's kind of fine with this. Anytime anyone conquers them, yeah, there's changes to Chinese culture, but often the Chinese kind of make them a new dynasty. So like the Mongols become the Yuan dynasty and continue ruling as Chinese emperors. So even though we have a new emperor, we still have the Chinese empire, which is why it lasts for so long. However, with the introduction of imperialism, this kind of goes out the window, and they go through a revolution in the early part of the 20th century, which ends with the establishment of the Communist People's Republic of China, which is what we have today. Now, North and South Korea have been involved in this whole mess for quite a while as well. They've been fighting off China, they've been fighting off imperialists, and basically they kind of got centered upon this great conflict between the United States and the USSR during the Cold War. This is part of what's known as the, domino effect. Here's the problem. There's all these different countries undergoing revolutions, and the fear was if one of them became communist, they would all become communist. And so because we were fighting against communism, it was an ideological war, we didn't want this to happen. So we would side with the other side of the rebels, trying to keep it as a democracy, even if that meant supporting a dictator. In the case of North and South Korea, that war is still going on. We signed an armistice with North Korea, but we're still technically at war with them. So it's still kind of an issue today. Now, as far as Japan is concerned historically, it for a long time was known for its feudal period. You got to think samurai and ninjas, all that kind of stuff. That's the feudal period. Basically, feudalism is that system of land for service we talked about when we were talking about Europe, where you have knights, professional soldiers. In this case, though, we're talking about samurai. In samurai, it's very similar to medieval knights. The main real difference, though, being that where samurai were archers on horseback, knights were kind of cavalry. Or not, they were both cavalry. What I mean to say is knights were like shock troopers. They were sent to break enemy formations. So other than that, they're pretty similar. However, the system of land for service only persisted as long as there was isolation. The Americans got them out of isolation in the mid to late 19th century, and so basically Japan had to modernize. And so they ended up undergoing a period known as the Meiji Restoration, where they ended up developing industry. And to this day, Japan is well known for its technology. If you think about Japan and the stuff it produces, the consumer goods that we buy from them, they often tend to be technological in nature. And this is largely due to the effects of the Meiji Restoration. Now,
That being said, if you look at the number one economies in Asia, you've got, of course, places like India, China, Japan, but you've also got up-and-comers like Taiwan. And largely that is due, again, to the introduction of industrialization. Yeah, east.
And so we went south, now this is.
Yep, you got it. East starts in China. So you've got these countries like Taiwan, which have been developing their economies pretty rapidly, and with, again, some of the changes that this has caused, you've got new economic structures in place. Some of these places have adapted so fast and developed so quickly that they are sort of unique because of it. Now that being said, it's kind of weird how some of these places you'll have cities which are just as modern as anything else, but then you go to like the rural areas and it's like stepping back 300 years. It's farming and pretty basic kind of stuff. But it's also developed technology in such a way that we have things that are becoming readily accessible. For instance, you guys are probably familiar with Lenovo. Lenovo, the brand. Yeah. They're very cheap. Cheap. This is one of the ways that they can do this. They can basically mass produce things and use cheap labor to produce consumer goods that are incredibly cheap. Now, they're also not really well known for quality, but they are also more readily accessible for people. And that cannot be overstated. Making things accessible to people is what makes them mainstream. Great example of that is look at how many people have iPads or tablets. Now let's talk about what effect this is probably going to have. Why doesn't everyone carry around a tablet? Why don't we use them? Well, affordability is one problem, but through mass production, it's going to become much more available. I think there's a Lenovo tablet out there that's about $60. And as technology drives that price down and down and down, things get easier to afford, and we can wrap our heads around it. So that's one reason, and that's a solution that we're seeing happen. What's another reason? Yeah. Sure. Although I find that more and more people carry both. It's not widespread, but some people have the choice of a phone or a tablet. They choose a phone because, let's face it, if there's more stuff. Yeah, but
Phones are getting bigger than computers.
yeah,
Have you seen this?
it is kind of fun. I have, yeah.
My dad can't fit it in his pocket though.
That's what I'm saying. They're gonna make pockets bigger, or like men are gonna start carrying purses.
I think it's hilarious that the whole smart watch trend that we're starting to
I
see.
the Apple Watch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I want a Fitbit. That's what I've seen them. It can't
I think that's interesting, really. You guys, I forget the name of it, but you've seen that, it's like that little cone they have for, I think it's Amazon.
Oh, the thing that you click on it? No, you click on it and then you can like buy whatever you want.
No. This is like, it's like a Siri for your house.
The Power Stick.
Well, it's like, I don't know what it's called. I don't think it's Power Stick though. It's like a name. Like,
Oh, you mean that's what, are you talking about like what they say the little button? So it's like a Tide button. You need more Tide, you hit the button and order it.
No. This is like, it's like a little appliance you hang out in your house. Like, let's say you're in your kitchen and start there and you're like, crap, I need half of an eighth of a cup. What's a half of an eighth? And it'll just answer it.
Oh yeah.
Our brother was talking about that.
Or if you're like, you're doing homework, you're like, how tall is Mount Everest? And it answers you.
Is it always not?
Yes.
Whoa, your phone can do that. If you say hey Siri, like if you say
Yeah, I mean, you do like that too. I just forget the name of it. It's not Cortana, it's not Siri, it's not Google, I forget what it is. But anyways, it's stuff like that where there is the idea, and a lot of people are like, oh, smart house, it was scary, things like that.
Oh, have you seen that movie?
No, I think it's a ridiculous premise.
It's a great movie.
I doubt that it's a great movie.
It's great.
Most likely it's entertaining.
It shot oranges at them.
Anyway. Yeah, I have a very high threshold for like concepts. It's like, oh, the technology's taking over. No, we've done this movie. We've done it 1,000 times. So,
It
sorry.
was not there.
What's that?
The house thought it was their mother.
That is totally ripping off Eisenhower.
And then it programmed itself into a woman,
Oh my.
like a hologram woman.
Either way, if you think about the positives, though, of some of these things, and the widespread implementation, I mean, it's really fun and fascinating to think about where things are going, but then this begs the question, well, why don't we have this stuff? And the answer simply is, you've got cost, you've got, is it readily available, is there enough of it for people to buy, and then is it going to be readily supported? Are people actually going to be able to use the device to do what they want it to do? Tablets for a long time, because do you guys know when the first tablet was invented? The 70s. 1970s. But the technology was so like clunky and unresponsive, it basically wasn't totally usable. It took time for the technology to develop and to be adapted. The other thing is, for it to become widespread, it has to be cheap enough and readily usable enough for people to, actively use it. Think about how kids are learning to use technology nowadays. I mean, my 3-year-old knows how to use an iPad, and that is something that they are building upon as they go. There's a lot of things we learn as we learn technology that becomes a fundamental principle of how we think about things without actively thinking about it.
I was trying to teach her how to do it, but then she just started doing it all by herself, like using her mom's iPhone.
Yeah.
The girls that I babysit, they're 6 and 8, and for Christmas they got iPad minis, and I seriously have to make these iPads better than I can. Whenever I watch them, they're always on their iPad.
Yeah. And the thing that's interesting is there are certain gestures and things like that become second nature, and you got to think why did we decide upon that? It's all a decision. Like for instance, this gesture. What is that?
No, to
Enlarge.
It's
Oh!
Yeah. Why?
Because it's just you on your phone.
You can't.
Why? Who decided that that's the gesture to make? Why did they decide that?
My mom, it's not showing them the story.
So does my mom. She goes, it's Christmas.
Well, someone actually, I see you had a great explanation for it. You're stretching it out. That's what you're physically, you're stretching it.
What about double tapping?
Things like that. That goes back to the old computer systems, which actually, before, going back to the first system of Windows, which was after DOS, you did it because you literally had little windows. And you had a window and there were files that you would click on and things like that, sort of like opening up files, things like that. And
used to use my phone, that whenever it was stolen, like when my house was robbed, I would reach over to grab it and it wasn't there. I did it every day.
Yeah.
It's weird because like sometimes that second nature to me now after something she's like, wait, how'd you just do that? I'm like, you're always been able to do that. Like, what are you talking about?
And that's an age thing, because when you grow up, you're learning technology quickly, and then someone comes up, no, we're going to do this differently. We're going to change how you interface.
Like Twitter, slide, and tap, and pictures go away.
Well, something people talk about is interfacing with just eyesight. You don't use gestures anymore, you just look at something and it happens.
What do you mean?
That's technology they're developing.
Oh, like when you're talking on the phone and you
Well, they wouldn't even have a phone, it'd be an implant in your head.
Like in dogs, like dogs.
They're
My
not-
dogs have chips in their head. So like if they get
Well,
lost, they scan
that's
them and they're
actually
like,
a
oop, that's a dog.
You have more information that it's a dog.
Where they
You like
live.
Pokemon, are you a boy or a girl?
Whenever they get fixed, you can choose to get a chip implanted in your dog. And so if they get lost, like they just do a quick scan to see if they're like who
Usually
their owner
back
is.
here.
Because they don't, my dogs don't have their names on their tag and their address, it just has that they've got their shop.
It's good information. Anyhow, but back to it. My point isn't to be all like, let's think about freaky technology. It's rather to talk about if you think about it, there's things that you guys are used to, but odds are good it's going to be utterly different in another 20, 30 years. I find there are things that I look at with modern Windows and be like, that's stupid. Why don't they just have the old way? The old way made sense.
It did make sense, but the new say it's better, it makes more sense. And that's just, you have to learn a whole new system. A great example of this is, and I probably told you this story before because it still amuses me, but I had a sub, my first year teaching here, asked me, how do you rewind the DVD? You know, and it's just, you don't.
Yeah.
You just don't have to, because you just go back to where it is. Yeah, how do you rewind? No, that's what I mean by go back. And explain that type of
Oh, you
thing.
mean like on the VHS?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant just like going back in general.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing of this, is that when you think about the technologies that we used to have and how you had to learn to adapt to it, like for instance, skills you will never have to know how to do because that will never be a problem, i.e. how to splice tape.
Or how to use a floppy disk or flash drive.
Sure.
We did one day, I can't remember, we used to have floppy disk. Yeah, we
It's funny because when you guys say floppy disk, you mean this size. When I say floppy disk, I meant one that was this big.
I'm not a square.
And it was, and it was actually literally floppy. That's why we call them floppy disks. The old floppy disks, you guys think about were rigid. They had a hard plastic cover to them. Floppy disks I had, like you could like, they were floppy, hence the term. You know, that's where they came from. But there's all these kind of terminologies that exist that we don't really apply to technology anymore, like dialing the phone. Because there used to be a rotary dial that you would spin.
Those are so heavy.
Yeah. And then, of course, you've got like rolling down the windows is another great example.
You go to the
Most of the
window,
time-
and then it goes back, and then you do it again, and it'll go back, and then you do it again.
Yeah.
When I was at her house over spring break, I don't know where we were, we were sitting in front of her TV, and I looked in the little cabinet thing, and it was the old Blockbuster movie. I was like, please remember to rewind the tape when you return it.
Oh, sure.
She stole it.
You didn't return it.
Girls, I was like,
They have bigger problems than when
I
you listen
still
to
have
it.
an old Blockbuster membership card in our house.
I really, I can't tell you how many VHS tapes I ruined because I would open them and be like, ooh, look at this. And I'm like, pull out this stuff.
The thing I like to tell folks is, like, as we talk about when are you old, like when is that moment you are old, and we're talking about this sociology. I'll tell you when
Remember the
when you
original
go to an
Bible.
antique store and you find your toys in it. That is when you're old.
oh.
You? I remember like one of the first antique stores I ever went to, I went there with a floppy disk, and I'm like, really? I don't even mean like the floppies I'm thinking. I'm talking about like the 3.5x5 ones you guys are in. I'm like, it's in an antique store? Really? So then I learned that, oh, antique also means useless junk store. Gotcha!
Yeah.
Yay! Alright, so really briefly, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism are all faiths that originate in China. Taoism is basically the Jedi. It's belief in balance of two opposite forces of positive and negative, femininity and masculinity. Confucianism is a system based upon moral piety, and specifically the importance of the family. And Buddhism, of course, you guys know, is actually originated from India. China's the most populous country, maybe. It actually goes back and forth. But the issue, daily life reflects the need to care for its citizens. Basically, their population is getting older, and taking care of that's an issue. Japan has many cultural elements similar to China. Basically, that's because there's been interaction between them for years. And then education is important for both of them. Now, one thing to consider about education in both these places is they emphasize it higher than we do. And this also goes into like how they structure everything. Like for instance, in Japan, for you to get into the next class, the next school year, the next grade level, you have to pass a test at the beginning. Yeah. I got 3,000. It basically is stuff you need to know for this year.